The rejected boy who built Ferrari at 18. Devastating truth about Enzo's rise. In the heart of Medina, Italy, mysterious whispers curled through the alleyways like a dense fog. Enzo Ferrari, a name that sent shivers down spines, was no ordinary boy. Tales of his rise were drenched in awe and disbelief. How could an outcast, someone pushed aside by classmates and overlooked by adults, craft a legacy that would outshine even the brightest stars? It was said the way he roamed the streets, head bowed, eyes flickering with determination, ignited sparks of curiosity. At just 18, he wasn't just a boy. He was a titan in the making, shattering all expectations. Enzo'S early life was drenched in shadows. His father, a mechanic, died when he was young, leaving behind nothing but a broken family and an unyielding drive. He faced ridicule every day. Kids at school would chant, "You're nothing, a nobody," but that just fueled the fire inside, pushing him to lose himself in machines, in the beauty of speed. He spent countless nights in his makeshift workshop, hands stained with grease and heart racing, dreaming of a time when he could transform rejection into roaring engines. Then came the fateful moment. A legendary race in 1920, Enzo watched as cars whizzed by, engines screaming like wild beasts. In that electric atmosphere, something inside him shifted. Would he let his fate be decided by others, or would he take the wheel of his dreams? The energy was palpable. The air thick with excitement and hope mingled with doubt. Something extraordinary simmered beneath the surface, waiting for a spark. Hey! Before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon, and while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the crowd roared, Enzo stood frozen in place, eyes wide, heart pounding. It was a call to arms, a moment that would change everything. And then, right at that instant, he felt the weight of the world collapse on his shoulders. How could he rise from the ashes of rejection? What dark secrets lay hidden in his pursuit of glory? With determination tightening in his chest, he chose to ignite the engine of his aspirations. But little did he know of the treacherous path ahead. Would history remember him as a pioneering legend or just another boy lost in the chaos of ambition? The roar of the engines faded, but the stirrings in Enzo's heart only grew louder. He turned away from the race, his mind racing like the speeding cars. What if he could design and create something extraordinary? The thought gripped him tightly, igniting a fire within. The streets of Medina felt like a cage, suffocating yet familiar, but somehow he had to break free. Under the cover of night, Enzo took to his workshop, a small space cluttered with scraps of metal and dreams. The scent of oil was intoxicating, each drop a testament to his late nights and relentless dedication. He pulled out a tattered notebook, pages filled with sketches and ideas, visions of a car that could roar just as fiercely as the machines he had watched earlier. His fingers trembled as he traced the outlines. But shadows lurked in that workshop. Doubts whispered like the wind outside. "You can't do this," they warned. "You're just a nobody." Each cruel taunt replayed as he worked, reminding him of the laughter that followed him at school. Heart heavy, Enzo paused, clenching his fists. This was his moment of choice. He decided that he wouldn't just build a car, he would craft a legacy. Fueled by frustration and rejection, he hurled a wrench across the room, its metallic clang echoing like a shot fired in the night. Silence enveloped the space as he breathed deeply, determination flooding his veins. There was no turning back. If he had to lose himself in this pursuit, then so be it. Days stretched into weeks. Enzo poured every ounce of himself into his work. He probed deep into the world of mechanics, forged connections with local racers, and even snuck into workshops to watch the experts at play. Each stolen moment filled him with insights and wisdom. But suspicion and envy brewed around him. Classmates who had once turned their noses up at him could almost smell his ambition, and they didn't like it. Whispers turned to threats. Rumors circulated like wildfire. "He thinks he's better than us now," the boys would snicker, their eyes sneering behind his back. But they could not see what he saw. Then, the first glimmer of hope appeared. A local race was announced, inviting participants from all over Italy. There it was a chance to prove himself. Every sleepless night poured into that moment. He needed a car, something that would leave a mark, something that screamed speed. But he had no money, no resources, and time was ticking away. This race was his shot at destiny, and the stakes had never been higher. While others built on their wealth and connections, Enzo stripped old vehicles down to their bones, scavenging parts, crafting an engine out of the very dreams that others had dismissed. Each bolt tightened was a statement. He was here to roar. As he threw himself into this labor of love, he could feel the eyes of the town narrowing in on him, but perhaps they were blind to what was unfolding. There was exhilaration, yes, but also fear. What if he failed? The thought of standing before the crowd, exposed and vulnerable, haunted him. But the allure of victory was like a siren's call. As race day approached, Enzo sensed the tension even in the cobblestone streets of Medina. He stood at the precipice of greatness, yet a gnawing question lingered. Would the burden of the past drag him down, or would he rise above it? The sound of engines revving began echoing in his mind, drowning out the fears. Enzo was ready to race, but who would take the wheel if the ghosts of rejection still pursued him? As dawn broke over the horizon, the day arrived. The race would begin, and with it, Enzo's fate hung in balance. The heart of Medina held its breath, waiting. Would he soar, or would he crash under the weight of his ambitions? Little did Enzo know that the most dangerous collision of his life awaited on that track, where dreams and nightmares often raced side by side. The sun crested the rooftops, casting a golden light across the town as Enzo arrived at the racetrack. The air buzzed with excitement, but for him, it was thick with tension. The ground vibrated beneath his feet, a vivid reminder of the powerful cars revving in the paddock. His heart pounded in his chest, a war drum sounding off the burial of doubt and the birth of hope. Enzo paced toward the pit area, refusing to let the murmurs of the crowd fracture his focus. The other racers stood near their sleek machines, engines gleaming under the morning sun. Conversations brimmed with confidence. Laughter bounced like bullets off metal surfaces. But for Enzo, it wasn't laughter or camaraderie that filled him, it was the gnawing weight of solitude. His car, a patchwork of modifications and salvaged parts, sat lonely but proud at the edge of the grid. It wasn't pretty by any means, but it was a raw collection of his vision and blood, sweat, and tears, a badge of defiance against all those who had doubted him. Suddenly, a voice broke through the noise, swift and cutting. What a joke! A group of familiar faces leaned against their flashy vehicles, snickering. Ignored by the rest who focused on their own preparations, they revved their engines for attention, taunting him. You really think you can win in that rust bucket? Enzo's stomach tightened, anger surging through him. Each laugh felt like a knife twisting in his side, yet he refused to let them see his pain. He tightened his jaw, swallowed hard, and inhaled deeply. Today wasn't about them, it was about him, about proving everybody wrong. He climbed into the driver's seat, gripping the steering wheel tightly as adrenaline surged through him like high-octane fuel. The sound of the engines wrapped around him like a comforting embrace, grounding him in the present. He tapped the accelerator lightly and grinned at the growl that echoed against the walls. It was more than just noise. It was life, a symbol of hope and redemption. Then came the announcement. The countdown began. Enzo's heart raced in time with the ticking clock. The other racers lined up, faces hardened in concentration, jaws set tight. But in that moment he didn't see rivals. He saw only the finish line, a shimmering beacon that called to him through the doubt as the flag waved overhead. He felt the roar of the engines explode in his ears. Raw power surged as the cars shot forward, a burst of smoke and adrenaline. Enzo's body instinctively leaned into the turn, navigating the sharp curve while adrenaline coursed through him with electric intensity. But out of the corner of his eye, he noticed something, a flicker of motion. A rival racer, fueled by a reckless desire to win, seemed to aim directly for him. Enzo's heart sank. This was no ordinary race. This was a battle for dignity, for respect. And that racer didn't just want to win, he wanted to crush Enzo beneath the wheels of his polished machine. Tension coiled like a snake within him as he gripped the wheel hard. His chest tightened, but he couldn't back down now, not after coming this far. His mind raced, calculating, envisioning every twist and turn. Uncertainty lanced through him, but instinct propelled him forward as they approached the next hard turn. Enzo felt the world slow around him. Would he stand strong against the threat? Or would this race be the end of his hopes and dreams? The thoughts circled like vultures above him, but with sheer determination, he pressed the gas pedal, ready to defend his ambitions, ready to face whatever came next. But the race had more in store than he could ever anticipate, and as they barreled down the track, the real danger lurked just ahead. Would he outsmart the treachery of rivalries and rise victorious? Or would fate take a turn he never saw coming? The roar of engines drowned out all thoughts as Enzo navigated the dizzying course, each turn a test of skill and will. He fought to find his pace, his mind laser-focused. The car transformed into an extension of himself, responding to his slightest moves, each rev of the engine igniting a fire within. The crowd's noise felt distant, a muffled heartbeat beneath the thunderous roar of competitors. But tension ignited again as the rival racer edged closer, a relentless shadow in Enzo's rearview mirror. He knew this was no mere competition. Every inch, every corner, held the fear of sabotage writ large across the now accelerating asphalt. The rival, with a sinister glint in his eye captured through the rearview, was dangerously close. It wasn't just about racing. It was about survival. As they rounded the bend, Enzo caught a glimpse of the grandstands, a sea of faces, half excited, half anxious, all cheering him on. Hope surged within him, an exhilarating rush that temporarily quelled his fears. He pressed down harder on the accelerator, roaring into a straightaway that seemed to stretch endlessly before him. But as he opened the throttle, the rival racer struck like a predator. The rival's car swerved, attempting to force Enzo off the track. Tires screeched as Enzo wrestled control, his heart pounding wildly, each beat a reminder of the stakes. The track felt narrow now, each second stretching into eternity. He could taste the grip of fear, a bitter, metallic tang on his tongue. Not today, Enzo shouted, more to himself than anyone else. He flicked the steering wheel, veering into the opposing lane, heart racing, adrenaline pushing him past the edge of caution. For a moment, it felt as if the world had fallen away. He was weightless, defying gravity, and everything, friends, family, doubters, hung in the balance. The rival racer's car rocketed ahead suddenly, expertly cutting him off and forcing Enzo into a moment of sheer panic. He gasped, eyes widening. No. The words erupted from a throat choked with urgency and fear as he slammed on the brakes. Everything skidded sideways. Time froze, danger swirling around him like a violent storm. The rear of his car began to swing, tires screaming against the pavement as the world tilted. He felt the gut-wrenching lurch of panic rising within him. He was losing control. But instinct kicked in. Just as the rear of his car swung fully, he yanked the wheel in the opposite direction, expertly swiveling back on track. He felt the weight shift, the tires grip, and in that moment, clarity dawned. He was still in it. The world shifted again. He could recover this. With grit gnawing at his veins, Enzo found his rhythm again, body and mind snapping into focus as the rival car tried to cut him off yet again. Gripping the wheel as if it were a lifeline, he prepared to swing wide on the next turn. He understood the pattern now. The rival was erratic and reckless, and that would be his undoing. Revenge bubbled up as he launched forward. The gap tightened. Each breath felt like it might be his last as the finish line loomed near. But just ahead, something flickered in the distance. Something was amiss. Smoke billowed from one of the leader's engines. As Enzo barreled onward, the tension within him wound tighter than ever. Suddenly, a deafening bang burst through the air. Tires squealed as the rivalous car careened wildly off course, crashing hard into the barriers. The crowd gasped, a collective intake of breath echoing through the stands. Enzo's heart dropped. Had it ended? Or had it only just begun? With an eye on the finish line slipping closer, Enzo suddenly felt the weight of the moment settle upon him. This was about more than just racing now. It was about proving everyone wrong. Would he claim victory amid the wreckage left behind? Or would this crisis conjure a darkness he never expected? The track ahead glinted in the sunlight, but shadows danced along the edges, lurking waiting. What lay beyond the finish line? The finish line loomed larger, a siren's call promising release. Enzo poured every ounce of his strength into the accelerator, the engine surging like a wild animal under command. He could almost taste victory, feel it on his fingertips. But that feeling was shattered in an instant and his peripheral vision. He noticed the rival racer's car reversing out of the wreckage, a twisted metal beast slowly regaining its stance. Enzo's stomach sank as the horrifying reality set in. This was no simple accident. The rival wasn't finished. His deeply embedded tenacity was about to rear its ugly head even stronger. Adrenaline pulsed through him, and fear clutched at his throat. He had to take decisive action. He glared ahead, no signs of slowing down. He veered past debris, narrowly escaping shards of metal glistening like daggers on the track. The crowd, sensing the surge of tension, erupted into a frenzy, cheers morphing into yells of concern. It was too much. Enzo could feel sweat beading on his forehead, trickling down the back of his neck, as he wrestled with the fear and sheer will to win. Was this even about a trophy anymore? The urgency twisted inside him, a knot that constricted with each heartbeat. He was racing against the clock, against history, against a man who would stop at nothing. The rivalous car, battered but relentless, surged back to life, chasing after him with perilous speed. The roar of the engine sounded like a war cry, echoing through the stadium. Enzo, shoulders tightened in conflict and determination, pushed harder. Suddenly, he caught a flash of movement ahead. A fuel truck parked near the edge of the track ignited from a burst of sparks. It erupted into flames, a blazing inferno of confusion and horror that spurted smoke and debris into the air. People in the stands screamed and scrambled, and Enzo's heart raced even faster than the car's roaring engine. Was this some sort of trap? With no time to waste, he felt a desperate pull in his gut. A decision had to be made. He could swerve left, veering wildly off track and risking his position, or stay the course and trust that his instincts were right. The flames drew nearer with every passing second, black smoke curling around him like wraiths beckoning from beyond. Then came a deafening roar, a shockwave as the blazing chaos erupted in a loud crackle. It felt like the very earth trembled beneath them, and for a split second, nothing made sense as the crowd gasped in horror, the scent of burnt rubber and gasoline overwhelming. Enzo's brain kicked into overdrive. His only thoughts honed in on survival. He gripped the wheel tighter and jumped the throttle. He had to keep moving. The rival would follow, fascinated by the chaos. But would he be wise enough to put himself in danger too? Each moment blurred faster. The fire, the rival, the finish line, everything pulled taut as a slingshot, ready to snap. But as they surged towards the bright lights of victory, Enzo spotted something else, a glimmer of truth hidden beneath the smoke. Shadows danced, revealing the presence of someone else lurking in the chaos. Suddenly, dread coiled back into his chest. This wasn't just a race. Something deeper was at play. The stakes had escalated beyond reason, wrapping him tighter in this deadly game. Who else was out there manipulating the outcome? A sinister laugh rang out through the chaos as Enzo pressed onward, knowing that crossing that finish line would only bring one frightening reality into focus. What awaited him beyond the flames? The answer danced tantalizingly, just out of reach. Enzo's grip tightened on the steering wheel as the flames roared behind him, licking the sides of the track like hungry beasts. He flew past the wreckage, adrenaline coursing through him in a violent wave. The rival's guttural growl of a revving engine echoed ominously behind him. Every instinct screamed for him to push the pedal to the floor, But something deeper clawed at his mind, a nagging awareness that this race was about more than just speed. He shot through the bend, tires screeching, as the oppressive smoke enveloped him, choking the light. The rival car was inching closer, a dark shadow against the fire's glow. Enzo'S heart pounded in rhythm with the roaring engines. He could feel the crowd's energy pulse beneath him, fear, hope, desperation. Then a sudden flash, blinding and harsh. Enzo squinted through the haze, spotting the figure he had seen earlier, a silhouette too familiar, standing by the burning fuel truck. The moment hung in the air, suspended between dread and disbelief. Was it? No, it couldn't be. He shook his head, trying to dispel the haunting image. He had come too far. There was no way that person could be here, not now. Enzo forced himself to focus on the track, but every turn was corrupted by the specter of his past. Memories flooded in betrayals. Laughter turned to jeers, the crushing weight of expectations. He was that rejected boy still fighting against a world that tried to put him in a box. The rival's car thundered closer, breaking him from his reverie. Enzo's instincts kicked in, and he swerved to the right, avoiding a deadly collision with the barriers. The roar of the crowd became a cacophony, their cries of excitement mixed with screams of horror. He didn't have time to think, only to react. As he pushed harder, something shifted in the air. It wasn't just the smoke or the heat. It was a palpable tension, a premonition curling like smoke around him. Was someone really pulling the strings in this twisted game? He glanced back, catching a glimpse of the rival's grim determination. But behind the exhilaration, the rival's eyes mirrored a deep-seated rage. Perhaps this wasn't just about winning for him. No, this was personal. Enzo'S past had set in motion something he hadn't anticipated. A sudden jolt rocked the car as Enzo hit a patch of oil left behind by the chaos. The vehicle began to spin, tires losing traction amidst the debris. Panic surged inside him, a cold grip around his heart. Time slowed to a crawl. In that moment, Enzo was caught between survival and inevitable disaster. Once again the boy fighting against odds that felt insurmountable. The roar of the flames grew louder, a terrifying reminder of the stakes. He willed himself to gain control, arms straining against the wheel as the world spun out of focus. Then silence. The car slipped sideways before coming to a grinding halt, facing the wrong direction. The crowd gasped, a collective intake of breath that felt like it could puncture the very air. Enzo'S pulse raced, a war drum in his ears, exhilaration competing with fear. In that frozen moment, everything changed. As he struggled to regain his bearings, the rival's car screeched to a stop beside him, blocking any chance of escape. The driver's door swung open. A figure stepped out, a familiar face carved from memories Enzo thought he could forget. In an instant, everything Enzo thought he knew shattered into pieces. It was all too real now. This was not just a race anymore. It was personal. Did you really think you could outrun your past? The rival's voice cut through the haze, chilling Enzo to the bone. Enzo'S heart raced as he faced the man who had haunted his every move. The finish line was still ahead, but now he was fighting not just for victory, but for freedom from a dark legacy that refused to let go. What secrets would unravel when the flames extinguished? Would victory come at a price he wasn't prepared to pay? Enzo's chest heaved as he stared into the familiar face that stood defiantly before him. This wasn't just his rival. It was a ghost reborn from a past he had fought so hard to leave behind. Every second hung thick with tension, as if the very air knew what was at stake. Let us finish this, the man spat, his voice cutting through the noise of the crowd and the crackling flames. It fueled Enzo'S desperation, igniting memories long buried and feelings he thought he could control. Gritting his teeth, Enzo willed his heart to calm. What was he even fighting for? The victory? Or was it something deeper? Would crossing that line with this man standing in his way mean freedom or more chains? The crowd buzzed around them, a wave of murmurs cascading like the smoke billowing from the wreckage. Some shouted encouragement, but others echoed doubts, steeped in the bitter history between them. This isn't just a race, he muttered under his breath, clenching his fists, gathering resolve. He couldn't let this man dictate the end of his story. Without warning, the rival lunged forward, fists aimed straight for Enzo. Reflex drove him. He dodged to the side, adrenaline surging with the intensity of the moment. Heart pounding. He felt the exhilarating rush of a fight, or was it fear? They were locked in a deadly dance, shadows against the firelight. Remember how you felt when you lost it all? The rival's voice dripped with malice, a twisted reminder of painful nights spent alone. Struck deep, shaking Enzo's resolve. Hot anger flared. He wasn't that boy anymore. They took everything from me. Enzo shouted, his words rising above the chaos. But I built myself back up. You think you can bring me down now? A battle cry echoing in defiance. Raw and scathing. The rival paused, momentarily stunned. In that heartbeat, clarity washed over Enzo. It wasn't just about speed. It was about conviction. Suddenly, every choice he made felt like it was colliding with the weight of his past decisions that had carved his path and forged his identity. With a fierce resolve, Enzo sprang back to his car. The engine roared back to life, a symphony of power and defiance that vibrated through him. The rival lunged after him, but the heavy thud of Enzo's heartbeat drowned out everything else. Get in, Enzo called to him, daring him. Let us see who really deserves to win. The rival hesitated, caught between two worlds, revenge or redemption. The moment stretched, thick with unspoken promises and bitter resentments. Sweat dripped down Enzo's brow as he locked eyes with his adversary. This was not the end. It was the beginning of a reckoning. The rival smirked, eyes gleaming with ferocity. You want this to be personal? Then let us do it. A surge of energy jolted through Enzo as both cars lurched forward. Tires screeched, racing against the flames that flickered behind them. They barreled toward the finish line, a blur of determination and destiny. But as the track curved ahead, a sense of dread settled in. Something was off. The air grew heavy, and an ominous shadow appeared on the horizon. What new threat awaited them just beyond reach? Would the reckoning they sought lead to something far more sinister than either could imagine? Enzo pushed harder, but another noise echoed, a sound that twisted hope into fear. The roar of the engines drowned out everything else, but just ahead, that ominous figure loomed larger. Enzo squinted against the brilliant flames licking the night sky. Keep your foot on the gas, he shouted to himself, forcing the car to respond. The rival's car flanked him, smooth and agile like a predator on the hunt. Enzo gritted his teeth, both sides tightening into a sinewy blend of determination and dread. Then, moments before they reached the bend in the track, the shadow solidified into something unmistakable. A blockade of wrecked cars, flames flickering like hungry beasts, ready to devour them. Damn it! Enzo shouted, the realization crashing into him. He swerved sharply, veering toward the outer lane. The tires screamed as they grappled for traction, spitting gravel and sparks. But it wasn't just his car at risk. The rival was hot on his tail, visibly reveling in the chaos unfolding. Thought you had it all figured out? The man laughed, taunting as he too adjusted course, a grim determination settling in his eyes. With every ounce of skill and desperation, Enzo held the wheel tighter, fighting against the pull of destiny. Memories flooded back, his father's desperate fervor, his mother's silent tears. He remembered their faces, filled with hopes and fears, as he promised to make something of himself. This wasn't just for him anymore. It was a vow carved into his heart. The track tightened, the inferno behind them casting will-o'-the-wisps of light across the asphalt. Each twist became a ticking clock. The rival was gaining ground. Enzo could feel his racing breath, hot and fast. Focus, he whispered fiercely, channeling every ounce of resolve. As they barreled headlong into the curve, Enzo's instincts kicked in. He whipped the wheel, gliding into the turn, feeling the friction and the fear merge into a singular drive. But the rival wasn't just there to race. He was there to finish things. A sickening crunch echoed as the rival slammed against Enzo's rear bumper, pushing him dangerously close to the edge. Panic seized Enzo. The flames of the wreckage flickered again, And suddenly it wasn't just a race. It was a battle for his soul, a confrontation against every wound he had fought to heal. "Why don't you just give up?" The rival sneered, venom lacing through his words. "Because I'll never back down." Enzo roared in response, adrenaline surging through every fiber of his being. He could almost taste victory, but the landscape ahead twisted with danger. The blockade loomed, metallic jaws poised to snap shut. Enzo didn't think. He felt every ounce of fear and hope wrangled together within him. Tires screeched. Metal crunched against metal. The rival edged closer, but Enzo pushed forward, sensing a powerful shift. Then came the moment, the thin line between triumph and tragedy. Just ahead, an opening appeared, a gap between the flames, a precarious chance for life or death. Could he make it? With one deep breath, blending fear and courage, he surged ahead. Engines roared, memories surged, adrenaline pumped. But as he launched into the gap, a shattering explosion erupted behind him. The crowd gasped, their heated whispers silencing in shock. And in that blinding moment, as the flames danced like devouring spirits, Enzo turned back, his heart clanging against duty. The rival wasn't there anymore. What had he done? Fear seeped in, twisting the victory on the edge of the unknown. Did he truly escape, or had he unleashed something far worse? As the smoke billowed and the flames settled, a chill whispered through the air, leaving only questions lingering in the aftermath. Who had really won this night, and at what cost? The air was thick with smoke, each breath tasting of burnt rubber and singed hopes. Enzo slammed the brakes, the tires biting into the asphalt, bringing his car to a jolting halt. Heart racing, he scanned the wreckage behind him, squinting through the lingering haze. Was his rival truly gone? A sickening knot twisted in his stomach. "Get it together," he whispered harshly to himself, hands trembling on the steering wheel. Just moments ago he had felt invincible, but now dread crept in. The crowd's gasps echoed in his mind, each gasp saturated with fear and disbelief. As the last embers flickered out behind him, Enzo gathered his resolve. He couldn't allow regret to paralyze him. Igniting the engine once more, he pulled away from the scene. But he barely managed to breathe easy when a sudden burst of headlights sliced through the smoke. Another car roared onto the track, moving with a determination that sent a chill down Enzo'S spine. It was one of the other racers, their eyes wide with shock and fear as they caught sight of him. "Enzo, what happened?" they shouted, voice cutting through the chaos. "I don't know. There was an explosion," Enzo yelled back, desperation clawing at him. He felt the weight of every pair of eyes in the crowd, pinning him under their scrutiny. They didn't just see a racer. They saw the moment of a choice, one that could rewrite his life story. The racer hesitated, confusion flickering in their gaze before turning to the wreckage. "We need to call for help." That's when Enzo'S instincts kicked back in. He couldn't be the hero everyone wanted. He must push through this moment. "No, we can't. If they find out it was me," but the other driver cut him off, a stern look in their eyes. "You think you can just run away from this?" The shadows of doubt loomed larger than the flames had. Could Enzo just leave? Every fiber of his being screamed at him to escape the truth that flooded his mind. Suddenly, a flurry of sirens blared in the distance. Red and blue lights began to swirl on the horizon, illuminating the scene in a harsh reality check. Time was slipping away. Enzo'S throat went dry. "I have to go," he said, voice barely above a whisper. "Go? You'll be a suspect. You can't just," the racer argued, catching his arm, but Enzo wrenched away. "Listen, I didn't mean for this to happen. I need to fix this." Panic swarmed him. Who would believe that it was all an accident? The thought of being labeled a villain gripped his chest. Squeezing tight, he hit the gas again, tearing away from the scene with a fierce determination. The roar of the engine mixed with the distant wails of sirens, each sound pulling him deeper into a world that felt increasingly hostile. The path ahead was murky, and with every mile he put between himself and the wreckage, a cold dread perched on his shoulder. But then, as he rounded a corner, he spotted something in the rearview mirror, something unsettling in the glare of flashing lights. A figure emerged from the chaos, face illuminated by those relentless beacons. Eyes blazing with purpose, they were coming after him. "Enzo!" they shouted, but he could barely make out the words through the immediate rush of adrenaline. His heart pounded, thumping wildly like a drum in his chest as he pressed down harder on the accelerator. Was it the rival? Why were they after him? As the road ahead seemed endless, Enzo fought against the rising tide of despair and guilt. The ghosts of his past whispered, threatening to draw him under. He took a sharp turn into a darker stretch of the outskirts, hoping to lose whoever was on his tail. It was then that he realized, as he plunged into the shadows, he wasn't just running away from the truth, he was running from himself. Was he a coward? Or a survivor? The landscape blurred, darkness closing in around him, but the sound of pursuit lingered, relentless. And as the figures grew closer, a chilling thought pricked his mind. What if the chase was only just beginning? The world outside blurred into an unrecognizable streak of night as Enzo'S heart thumped like a war drum in his chest. He could feel the shadows swallowing him whole, isolating him from the light and the truth. Each turn he took felt more desperate than the last, the headlights behind him growing closer. He was running. Running not just from the authorities but from the boy who was nothing, the outcast, the nobody. He squeezed the wheel tighter, the leather biting into his palms as every ounce of regret twisted in his gut. "Where are you going?" A voice suddenly pierced the cloud of noise and panic. It was the familiar figure, the rival, now armed with questions and a defiance that burned brighter than the flames that had erupted moments before. His face was a mix of anger and something unrecognizable, betrayal. Maybe? His car zoomed alongside Enzo'S, refusing to let him flee deeper into the darkness. "Get away from me!" Enzo shouted, his voice blending with the roar of engines and the wail of sirens far behind. He couldn't face what lay ahead if he didn't find peace within. "You have no idea what I've done. What happened back there. You're not like them." The rival's words caught him off guard. "You didn't want this. You just wanted to escape, but running won't change it." Enzo'S breath caught in his throat. A suffocating mix of guilt and anger bubbled beneath the surface. Escape? Look where I ended up. He could feel the seam of his world beginning to unravel, each passing second fraying everything he'd fought for. Silence hung between them for just a moment, thick and heavy, both cars rolling through the night. Enzo suddenly felt the weight of his choices crash down around him. The pursuit of victory, the need for affirmation, the longing to prove the doubters wrong. But it all brought him to this moment, a chase forged in flames, uncertainty, and a brutal confrontation of his past. "I'm not the one who hurt you," the rival shouted, desperation piercing through the layers of their history. "We're both fighting against the same fears. Let us finish this together." The words struck Enzo like a slap in the face, savage and unrelenting. They ricocheted in his mind, battling against the doubt that clawed at his heart. "Together?" he choked, the notion too raw, too foreign. "You think this is about you and me? I've made my mistakes, big ones." A flash of understanding crossed the rival's face, quickly replaced with a fierce determination. "Then make it right. Get it together, man. Or else it'll break you." The rallying cry hit its mark, jolting him from the haze. Enzo'S chest tightened, but instead of panic, clarity surged through him. He had never wanted to run. He craved a chance, and now was not the time to retreat. He had built something from nothing. He owed it to the boy who had not backed down to fight for recognition. Perhaps it was time to face what had always frightened him. Without a word, he accelerated. Exhilaration surged through his veins as he veered onto the main road, moving towards the heart of Medina, towards the lights and sounds of the crowd. With a shared glance, both competitors pushed forward, adrenaline racing as they approached the scene of chaos, left behind a chance to step into the heat of judgment and rebuild. The crowd was there, waiting. The mob itself had become a mixture of cheers and panicked voices, caught in the duality of fear and wonder over what transpired. Parking his car amidst the chaos, Enzo leaped out, instinct kicking in as he faced the wreckage, the broken pieces of metal now symbolizing his fragmented past. "Enzo!" The rival shouted from behind, but Enzo couldn't look back. He had come too far. The sirens blared ever closer, creeping in on the edges of his vision. But instead of fear, determination surged through him once again. This was bigger than him, bigger than all of them. He didn't know what would happen next, but he knew now. He wasn't alone in this revelry of damaged pride and promise. He stood tall, adrenaline coursing through him. "We can fix this," he shouted into the chaos, legs trembling hard. Beneath him, the words felt like a prayer, half desperation and half hope wrapped in a single moment. The crowd fell silent, eyes snapping towards him. Some were shocked, some intrigued, but all were transfixed. This was what he had wanted. The chance to reclaim the story he had almost lost. Together, shouts echoed back, and Enzo felt tears sting his eyes. He had finally built something solid, not just with machines, but with his own spirit. It was an understanding born from shared dreams and the failure that had chased them. Forging from the wreckage of both engine and legacy, it was testimony that would not just stretch the boundaries of speed, but the rebuilding of a life he genuinely wanted. And in that unified cry, something shifted. The residual doubts that crawled into his mind fell away, replaced with a chorus of hope, relentless and radiant. He smiled at the rival, a firm nod signaling a pact made beyond a finish line, a silent vow between two broken souls, ready to embark on the journey of becoming whole. "Now let us show them how it's done," Enzo declared, stepping forward, no longer just the rejected boy. He was emerging as the architect of his life. Please, if you enjoyed this epic conclusion, you need to subscribe now. Don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to fuel the algorithm and support our community. Flood the comments section with your reactions. What did you think of this ending? Did Enzo truly find redemption? And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Together, let us celebrate the power of transformation.